Hello and welcome to It's No Secret. I'm Christine.
And I'm Kat.
And today on the podcast, we're talking about common money mistakes to avoid when travelling. With both Kat and I heading away on holidays in the next couple of months, we figured what better time to dig into avoiding spending all your money by accident on travel.
Well, on things that you shouldn't.
Yeah. So more about the mistakes rather than the actual fun of traveling.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you are planning on, you're actually 2 days away from going away.
Yep,
so that's
exactly.
Fun.
Yep. So I'm in the thick of actually doing all the organisation of my money life right now. So we can talk about that because there's a few things that, I'm quick last minute scramble, got to hustle.
Transfer wise.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. And I have recently been away for a week, but also going away at the end of the year to see my fam in Denmark, which is exciting. Also very underprepared, so this is great. I'm going to learn as we go. Cool. So I guess to set the scene a little bit, I found some great stats around us Kiwis wanting to travel. 85% of Kiwis plan to travel in the next year, according to Intrepid Travel, which is a lot. And not really surprised given we haven't really been anywhere in the last sort of 3-ish years.
Yep.
And 72% said the pandemic / cost of living wouldn't stop them from taking the trip. So,
which is very high.
Yeah.
Because also travel right now is really expensive. So I feel like anywhere that you can cut costs or just save money in general is definitely needed.
Yeah. And travel is most certainly a luxury, not a necessity. But clearly Kiwis are ranking them high on the list, which is exciting.
Yeah. Also, I see here you've got that places Kiwis most wanted to travel were around New Zealand to Australia or Turkey.
Yeah.
Turkey's random as number 3.
I guess it's hot. Maybe that's what it is.
I don't know.
I also was quite surprised. Why, do Kiwis want to go around New Zealand at the moment? Is it because it's we're going into summer and camping?
I guess so. Maybe? And maybe just more family friendly. You know what you know. It's a lot easier. Yeah. Maybe you can drive, although then again that's expensive because fuel's expensive. There's no cheap options really. Having a cheap holiday at the moment is just not happening. So
yeah, definitely. So fun little set the scene.
Yes, love that. So I guess the number one thing that we've already talked about, obviously, is when you go on holidays, you have to spend money, and making sure that you do that in an effective way that's not going to cost you a lot is super, super important. I feel like every young person that listens to the show will be on board with this, but I'm just going to tell a quick story about the fact that my parents live in Australia, they come to New Zealand a lot to visit us, and my dad, for the absolute life of him, refuses to open a TransferWise account because he's like, they've got no banks, and I'm like, they've got more customers around the world than fucking ASB have. What's wrong with you? And it just drives me wild. But he is over 70, and I do have to respect that, but still so I guess before I just bang on too much about that rant, obviously guys, it is so crucial to not just go overseas and use your normal bank card like you would, because that is the easiest way to start racking up unnecessary costs at every possible point, right?
Yeah, I have definitely done this in the past.
Yeah.
It's not pretty when you get back and you're like,
for sure. And it's one of those things you need to be organised, because whether you're using TransferWise or another service, you have to obviously have enough time before you go. You can't just do it the day before you go, because you need to open the account and actually get the card and transfer the money and figure out your things. So hot tip. We did this a few weeks back because I've had a Wise account and a bank card attached to it for quite a while, but Luke doesn't. And then it made me feel really nervous that we were going overseas with just one card. And so I forced him to open an account and get a card just in case. So, again, make sure you've got more than one if there's two of you traveling. The other thing is, making sure then you have backup cards should anything be stolen or be lost. So we are also taking we've got 2 credit cards, one that's Australian based that we've had since living in Australia, and then one that is a New Zealand one, but we don't really have any intention to use them. They're just the emergency cards.
Yeah, nice.
Should you need something. But TransferWise, or now that they're Wise, are our number one. And, just making little things like, do you have all your currencies that you need depending on where you're going? How much money are you putting into each of them? All that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Recently, as I said, we went to Sydney and I was the person that wasn't prepared, didn't have any money, basically. I know, but Ollie, thank goodness, had done all of that, had money. Great. And so I just kind of took all of his. But we were...
Because doesn't it annoy you if you just are not prepared because you're being a bit lazy, and then you're like, God damn it, now I'm paying, whatever it is, 2% 3.95% per transaction, or, X amount every time this happens. And no thanks.
I actually had some American cash, funnily enough, that I was like, oh, there's enough here to like possibly get me through. But then I was like, no, I just trying to pick and choose what to spend the money on, especially when you have like cash is like, who has cash these days?
True.
And then I ended up getting to the airport as well, actually, and being stung with high exchange fees because I didn't do it until I got there. It was all a bit of a fiasco.
But now I feel like, the nice thing with travel is using cards like Wise is so easily accepted and like universally accepted, right? I remember going overseas for the first time and you'd have to take out a certain amount in cash and then like split the cash between like your person and your checked luggage and other luggage and all that kind of stuff, because they're like, what if your card can't be accepted? And that just feels so ridiculous and foreign. I have absolutely no intention to take any cash out when we're overseas.
Yeah, don't do it.
So,
We were also, while we were in Sydney, we were travelling with Ollie's brother and brother's girlfriend, and at one point one of their cards got blocked from their bank. And that was that
old chestnut. Hot tip. Tell your bank you're going overseas. So again, with the two cards that we have that I guess we're taking as our emergencies, you do not want to be in a situation where the emergency happens, you need the backup card, you haven't told Westpac that you're going to be in Paris, and then you go to Paris and they're like, no, you cannot pay for that thing because
no backup plans.
Backup plans from there. So shout out to Westpac because we do bank with them, and you can actually just like update them in the app that you're going overseas. Nice. So, again, just ticking off the little things off the to-do list.
Yeah. I think the moral of the story is get TransferWise and use that.
Yep, exactly.
And have enough money so you don't have to use your backup plan.
Yep. But do have a backup plan of some variety for cards.
Exactly.
Yep. Anything else on spending money?
I guess taking it back a step is possibly planning the amount of money that you're going to have to spend while you're away.
So hard.
Yeah.
So hard.
Because I'm not great at this. I just kind of also buying your flights and paying for accommodation and all of those things ahead of actually traveling is quite easy because you obviously have the ability to do that ahead of time. But when you get over there, knowing how much things are going to cost, it's not like you're going to sit down and work out how much a croissant costs in like Paris or Sydney or whatever.
That is definitely a big one.
Budgeting, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, maybe I would say the answer to that, because we've been going through this trying to budget for like how much is a family of 3 going to need every day for food and fuel in Europe, and I have absolutely no idea. But the nice thing about Wise is that you can have multiple accounts, and you can have one, I think it's called like savings jar, and you can basically just park money in it that's then not accessible on the card, and then through the app you can transfer it between the two. So, if you're going for a longer period of time or even a shorter period of time and you're maybe just a little bit spendy on like days 1 and 2, because we are going for a longer period of time, we're away for 5 weeks, I'm not planning on having like all 5 weeks worth of cash sitting on the card accessible, right? Trying to almost do what we do at home, which is like,
refrain.
We'll have your money in the other account and then transfer it onto the spending card like on a weekly basis to try and not go crazy. Because no one also likes getting to the end of their holiday and being like, I have spent all of my money in the first 2 weeks and now I have a week of poverty. On the last week of my trip is just eating like baked beans. No, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Or you don't want to be that friend that has like done it well and then you're like, oh, well, I want to go do all these things, and all your other friends don't have any money. So you need to take them along for the ride with you.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Love it. So good. Get hustling. If anyone's going away soon, get organised now. This is your reminder. Yeah. Number 2, your phone. Oh, catches you out.
Yeah. I, again, don't even think about it when I travel.
Well, Christine, now we're going to talk about it because you need to think about it right now.
Yeah.
So this is obviously dependent based on who your network is with, but I know for us, we are with Vodafone, and at the moment on our plan, I think to go overseas, you're charged like $8 a day to continue your normal plan. It used to be $5, and guys, inflation, getting me. At $5 a day, it was kind of stomachable. Like I was like, this is palatable. This is okay. But at $8 a day, if you're anywhere for over a week, it does kind of add up a bit. And then I was like, I don't know, particularly if there's 2 of you, because then Luke and I both use our phones all of a sudden at $16 a day. And I'm like, do we really need this? So looking at what is already, like, what's the default, right? What's going to happen the minute you land in the country if you do nothing? And then if that's not what you want to have happen, being organised in advance. So in the example of Vodafone, I know that you can actually buy now like overseas data use packs and stuff. So we could say we're not going to use our normal plan whilst we're away. We're just going to buy this other amount. Yeah.
I was just thinking it's quite different also going between countries versus going to one for the whole time. So you're going through like a couple countries. When I went to Sydney, what we did was we just got to the airport and we bought new SIM cards for another provider because we were like, also now we have that next time we go back and we don't really, it was like
easy.
Like $20 for sure.
My brother did that recently when he came from Australia to New Zealand, like way easier to just buy basically an easy SIM card and all he really needed was data so that he could like text us and use Google Maps.
And lose the Kiwis.
Yes. But you're right. That is a lot harder if you're going to places where you're potentially like going through different borders and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, how is this all working?
What do I have?
Exactly. But I think this is one of those things that, you know, you always hear those horror stories of people just forget and then they get back after like a 2-week vacation and have a giant $1,000 phone bill and no thank you.
Oh,
no,
that's
thank
not
you.
something that you want to welcome you home.
No, exactly. So in our instance, we have agreed between Luke and I that only one of us is going to be using our phone because in terms of actually having like data. Obviously, we will have 2 phones, but we're like, no, we're together. All our families can just like, you know, text us in our family chat and we can still reply on the one number. And then the other person will just be able to use all their apps that you can use on Wi-Fi anyway, which let's be honest, like we're not staying anywhere that doesn't have Wi-Fi.
Yeah. So Cat is not going off the grid.
No, exactly. So it's not as big a deal as we're probably making it out to be. We'll still have one phone with data for things like maps and things that we need, but yeah.
Yeah, nice. Oh, true. If you're driving, maps is quite important,
Yeah. What did we do without How did we have a holiday? I don't know.
Or you could just not get a phone and buy a map.
Yeah. I can't read French. I don't know. But yeah, again, something that you need to definitely prep for in advance, right? Because you don't want to be figuring that out like the day you land in the foreign country.
No, it's, not fun.
Not great. No.
Number 3.
I'm going to throw this next one to you because I want to know, do you already have travel insurance? Did you get travel insurance to go to Sydney is my first question. I'm going to tell you off if the answer is no.
Yeah, okay. So you guessed it, number 3 is insurance.
Yeah.
So in answer to the first part of that, did we get travel insurance? We actually did, but it was only begrudgingly by me because Ollie kind of forced me into it.
Well done, Ollie. I hope you listen to this. Kudos to you.
Yeah,
Christine is in the dog box right now.
For all 3 of these points so far. But I guess the backstory behind that is Ollie was also going to Fiji for work and it's compulsory that you have to have travel insurance to enter the country. And I think that's in part because...
That's very interesting. I didn't know that. Good on them.
Yeah. And I think it must be because
they do not
COVID.
want us weighing on their health system.
Yeah, exactly. Or that you are able to get back.
Yes.
Get out if
exactly.
something happens. So, yeah, I think it was, from memory, probably like $400 for a week or something like that. So, I mean, it's not insignificant. It does add up. And we do plan on getting it when we go to Denmark for Christmas as well. But yeah,
great. I am a huge proponent of travel insurance. I truly do not know how people go on holidays without having travel insurance because I guess I just think about it this way, right? Like, I do understand that if you're going to Australia for a week, you're like, oh, $400 seems like a lot for something that probably won't happen. That is fair. However, if something did happen, how much is that going to cost you?
Yeah, thousands.
You're in a country that, you know, I think in New Zealand, we kind of live in this weird bubble because we have ACC that even if you don't have forms of private health insurance, you get a lot of cover. Guess what, guys? That doesn't exist in other countries. Like... it's not like, you know, when Australians come to New Zealand or a foreigner comes to New Zealand and they injure themselves, they get covered under ACC. You go to Australia, good luck, you're on your own.
Especially as a Kiwi.
Literally, you know, and so it's like I think that sometimes that reality is just missing for people. And I am also going to tell people a horror story around this as to why you should 100% have travel insurance. So 5 years ago now, it was actually just as we were moving to New Zealand, my brother was traveling in North America and South America with some friends, and then he was ending the trip by himself. We got a phone call when he was on the South American leg of his holiday from one of his mates saying that he was in hospital. They thought he had pneumonia. His friends were continuing on their trip. It was basically around the time that they were meant to kind of like go their separate ways, which was all fine. But they just wanted to let us know because he didn't have like easy access to a phone being in the hospital that he was in part of Chile. By pure coincidence, I had just quit my job because we were planning to move to New Zealand in the next month, and Luke also had that time off work, and we were naturally a little bit like concerned about him being in Chile in a hospital by himself.
Yep.
And so also having the like luxury of cheap airfares, thanks to Luke's job, we staff travelled to Chile, thinking that like it would kind of be fine. It would sort of be a bit of a vacay. A bit of a funny story. We landed there and we couldn't go to the hospital straight away because of like visiting hours. So Luke and I went out to dinner and got really drunk because their spirits are really strong. I had like way too many cocktails. Woke up the next morning being like, it'll be fine. It was absolutely not fine. Like hard out not fine. Worst day of my life, being very, very hungover and faced with the reality that what eventuated was my brother needing to have part of, well, about a quarter of his lung cut out in open chest surgery in a foreign country where very few people spoke English, in a private hospital that you would only literally be let into if you paid the upfront bill in advance as a foreigner. That upfront bill to literally be let in the door was $20,000. The only way that we could do that was either handing over one of our personal credit cards, which we were just lucky enough that Luke's credit card even had a $20,000 limit because mine certainly does not, or getting your travel insurance company to pay.
Yeah.
The alternate was leaving him in the public hospital that he was in, which for everyone's reference was an old tuberculosis hospital. There were 9 men in this hospital ward. There were glass windows and like no covers, no privacy between the beds. He was basically lying in this bed. He couldn't leave. They told him that he could have no valuables on him because they would probably be stolen. So yeah, it was a bit of a shit show. And in the end, what literally was him getting a viral infection from going swimming in a swimming pool that turned into pneumonia, that turned into a infection in his lung that started eating his lung that resulted in this major surgery, cost our travel insurance company over $100,000. If we didn't have travel insurance, we would have had to pay that.
That's so much money.
Yeah.
I feel like you've literally had experience with everything. I was like, you've just been around the block a few times.
But I think the thing in that situation, right, is people are like, oh, I'll get travel insurance because maybe I will need to see a doctor and get some like prescription medication because I get tonsillitis overseas, which has also happened to me. And that is sometimes how you have to use travel insurance. But I guess the point is you also just really don't know what situation is going to happen to you. And the surgeon that did the surgery on my brother said to us, like, if anyone within their own country had gone swimming in the same swimming pool and had like basically swallowed some water, think he had a bacterial infection get into him, they would have been fine because they have immunity to that. You as a foreigner do not. And you're not used to these like different germs that we have here, and you've just come out of winter and now you're in like hot weather, and it just didn't work well for him, and it was like a very, very bad result. He ended up being fine. He's lived to tell the tale. I shouldn't joke about that. It was actually quite serious. But, you know, it's just I am now so happy to hand over my money to any travel insurance company for obviously a good policy and a reasonable amount. But it's like for those medical things, you just have absolutely no idea, A, what might happen, and B, what it might cost in another country.
I did not expect 20 grand to turn into 100,000. That's a lot.
Yeah. It was things like, you know, because they paid for basically all of his medical bills. I think the surgery alone, like the specialist, his time in the specialist hospital, you know, he was in ICU for like 3 days. He was in hospital for over 2 weeks. They paid for all of that. They paid for me to be there the whole time because he needed assistance. They then ended up flying my dad over because I couldn't stay any longer. So dad had to come. They had to fly them both back. Rob had to come back in business class because he couldn't like sit in a certain way, all those kinds of things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And this is not the, I've got other stories of other friends that have had a similar like,
really? What else is it?
Friend that fell out of a 4-story window and basically broke every single bone in his body, and then needed to have multiple surgeries in Portugal, and I think was in their medical system for about 6 weeks, and then eventually had to be like sent back to New Zealand because he wasn't going to receive the specialist care that he needed in that country.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh, I have goosebumps.
I know.
That sounds horrific.
Yeah. And you just don't know. Like my brother was like young. This was when he would have been like 25.
Yeah.
You know, it
Healthy,
can have, like no other issues. So yeah, travel insurance for sure. I think there's probably, you know, you obviously need to shop around for a good policy. When it comes to this now, I'm just like, just go with a company that is big enough and serious enough that if something happens, you're going to be covered. Because my biggest learning actually, other than just needing travel insurance, was they were really difficult to deal with at some points. Like, and that's the other thing is there was no way that, and this is what you don't think of at the time, like there was no way that Rob could have been dealing with them whilst he's literally in hospital. You know, like you have to have other people in your family kind of advocate for you and help you and potentially be over there. And to do that, you know, it was a big cost for us to be able to fly over and help him. So thankfully insurance covered that, but yeah, something to think about.
Choose them wisely, definitely.
Yes, choose them wisely. Don't go through like a cheap, dodgy one.
Yeah. That's actually perfectly lead on to the next point. But I did want to say one thing before we move on.
Yeah.
Insurance can also help when you lose your baggage and need to like
for sure. Which is happening to a lot of people right now.
Yeah,
very
it's
timely.
very common. And
I know.
Actually, I was talking to Ollie's mum yesterday, because on the way to Denmark we're flying through Hamburg, and apparently, she had a friend who recently they went to France for something, and all of her baggage got lost. It was thousands of dollars of her clothes. And the key point around that was to make sure that you're kind of tracking everything that you, or like writing down what you actually have in your bag.
Great
so
shout.
So that you know like what you can claim for and how much of the value that you can actually get back.
The psycho that I am, I'm already like writing packing lists. So now I'm like, I'm going to just take this packing list with me.
But also to like make sure that the most valuable stuff you have in your hand luggage
for sure.
Super important as well.
Yep.
All those bags of cash you carry around.
I must say we're already hacking this because we are splitting all of our clothes between the two bags because I was like, I don't want one person's entire luggage to be lost. And then it's like you have to, you know, rebuy for like Lily. That would be really annoying.
Yeah, that's so true.
Whereas, you know, we could probably make do with like one pair of pants and one jumper and like a few T-shirts for a time. But if one person is like entirely unable to be dressed, problematic. So yeah,
that's a good point actually.
Number 4 though, we talk about avoiding third parties. So I think this is just kind of common sense, right, when it comes to travel. Like, sure, there is a time and place for some third parties, maybe like travel agents, depending on where you're needing to go. But for the most part, like you actually often get the best deals just going direct, right? Yep. Or just thinking about cutting out the amount of like middlemen in any transactional booking that you're doing. And I think that kind of applies blanketly to like lots of things, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely avoid third parties like the plague after one experience that I had.
Well, if you have a problem like you need to get a refund or something, it's a lot harder than dealing with, you know, say it's an airline, the airline directly.
Yep. So, perfect example. There was a point in my life where I was like having a little bit of a midlife crisis, sold all my stuff, wanted to travel to Nepal, bought a ticket, was on time, actually super early, got to the counter and then they told me that I'd put my name on the ticket wrong. So because I have a double-barreled last name, Jensen O'Lagus, I forgot O'Lagus and that needs to match my passport. And so then because I booked through something like Skyscraper or Scanner or whatever it's called, I tried to change it, but they said, no, you had to do it 72 hours before. So I lost that flight and had to stand there and wait while the plane left off. And it was like $1,000 and I had to pay for it on the spot when these flights were like $600 or $500 ahead of that. Yeah. Just picture me crying in the airport with my sister telling me to get over it.
Yep. I can actually picture that.
It wasn't pretty.
I've seen you cry just placing you in an airport.
And also, like, at an airport, you're so, like, flustered and stressed. So, it's not fun.
It's just, like, forthcoming for tears. Like, there's nothing you can do. It's the environment.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so annoying.
Yeah. Oh, actually, also another example is recently Caroline, my sister, was travelling through the US and booked her flights. I think it was actually even through Air New Zealand, but because she was in the US, they didn't have an Air New Zealand desk. And so she was delayed and they rebooked her and blah, blah, blah. It was this big fiasco. And so sometimes it does actually pay you to like book with the airline that you're traveling through in the terms of the
I see what
country.
you mean, rather than the code share.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not always avoidable.
Agree. Agree.
Do you have any fun stories around being stung with that?
Thankfully, nothing like terrible for. We have actually now. We've done a little bit with just like travel bookings, mostly for accommodation when trying to book for like bigger family events. And of course, it's just really hard when you need to. It's all the changing. It's like cancelling or changing dates. It's just a nightmare. So I'm like, no,
Flexi.
direct every time.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then number 5, researching ahead of time. So making sure that you actually plan enough in advance to not end up in a situation where you just have to throw money at a problem.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, so the 2 points were what we just talked about in terms of luggage, just making sure that you know what you're entitled to. So there's a, like specifically with luggage, pretty sure that in European law or something like that, if you don't receive your baggage within 24 to 48 hours, you're entitled to X amount. I think it's like a couple grand or something.
Also, fun tip on that, making sure that you know if it's the airline's fault, what the airline policy is for lost baggage. So I don't know 100% right now with Emirates, but in the past when traveling with Emirates, there is that basically when you get to the airport and your bag is lost, they will give you an amount in the local currency immediately to cover a certain amount. Fun fact, they give you more depending on what class of passenger you are.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we had done this because we had flown halfway in business class and halfway in economy. And we were like, can we have the business class allowance because we want more money?
Trying to be sneaky.
But also we were like, are you just assuming that people in business class are dressed better? I mean, maybe a fair assumption.
Sure.
I don't know. No.
Yeah. Surely that's
or ridiculous.
Like, worked into the ticket.
Exactly. But yeah, definitely something to think of. And this is also just reminding me some of the bonuses of travel insurance. So I know our travel insurance, I think we got through Southern Cross. And you can actually, in the same way as like your home contents cover here, you can specify items of a specific value if you want it to be covered. So we ended up getting a policy that covers us for the whole year because we knew that we would be going to like Australia multiple times and it just covers Lily and I if we like travel, with like Luke on a work trip, that kind of stuff. And so we put things on there like Luke recently travelled and took his golf clubs and his golf clubs are like $2,000. Yeah. And I'm like, well, if they get lost, we want those specifically covered. And it was just, I think, there's some stuff like that or, jewellery is another example or say a particular camera, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. This was also just making me think of when I went to Nepal and in the travel insurance, it explicitly said you cannot do like skydiving or any type of adventure sports. And it's quite common to go paragliding over there. I just went anyway. But
Oh, no.
Okay, I live to tell the tales. So it's fine. But
good.
at least I knew what I was like walking into.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. But yeah, definitely researching ahead of time, I think, is the thing. And mostly because, like, look, if you don't, guys, that's also fine. But there's nothing worse than when you're on holidays trying to enjoy yourself and you just make some really easy mistake, like money mistake, that then ends up costing you way more. And there's like such a kick in the guts because you're like, that could have given me, a day's worth of activities or like dinner at this particular place we wanted to go or just a bit more flexibility. And it's, just a bad taste in your mouth when you're trying to live your best life on holidays,
Exactly. Also, another one is with transport. So in Sydney, what Ollie did ahead of time is he researched all of like the Uber deals that you
he's
get.
Got too much time, that man. No, he doesn't. I'm here for it.
I think it's like DD or something. Is that
it's a bit better than Uber.
Yeah, it is. Way more reliable.
Well done, Ollie. Well done. Yeah.
But because there were 4 of us, we all just like referred each other and got heaps of
all
discounts.
the discounts.
Yeah,
Nice.
it was really, really good.
Oh, so good.
Especially because it rained the whole time we were there. So who wants to take a bus when it's raining? Or walk rather.
Love that.
Yes. So
Perfect.
top 5 tips.
Yep.
There we are.
And outside of that, just enjoy your holiday.
Yeah.
I mean, spend a bit more money than you have maybe. Like we've talked about this before. These things happen. Live your best life. Enjoy yourself. Come back. And back to reality.
Yeah, which is expensive as well. So
moral of the story, everything's expensive.
Yeah.
No. Cool. If you guys have any fun travel trips coming up, we would love to hear them.
Yes.
And yeah, otherwise, thanks for tuning in. We will see you next Tuesday chatting about more money fun.
Bye.
Bye.